Okay, Holy God Earth. All right, yo, this is the true boss character. Oh my God, did you see that chip? Oh, and the get down lightning strike. Yo, Big Brother is out to play. Damn. That lightning bolt is so good. Yo, folks, don't forget to clip your favorite moment of me getting absolutely trounced. Yo, my friend. Look. I know you're not only Earth, you're not only God, but you're the holiest of God Earths. But like, I need you to calm down a little bit. Yay! Oh, yes. Dissolve back into nothingness. We got it, friends. Yo, now let's just enjoy some beautiful ending art. Whew, boy. Yo, I don't know if they like scaled down the difficulty of the AI after a certain number of quarters were pumped in, but I'll take this win. So I was thinking, what happened to IGS, right? I wonder where some of these developers, the art designers, where did they end up, right? Like, sometimes you just have folks, like, they're in the industry, they know some people, they do some art, and they do it for 5 years, and then they disappear, right? But yeah, they're still alive, right? So, still making arcade games? As IGS, is IGS still in, like, actually still in operation? I thought they were defunct. Mostly fully making games for kids. Right, and so this is it. I wonder sometimes, because I know, like, a lot of folks end up in the pachinko, the casino world, and stuff like that, and doing educational stuff. There's a lot of directions some of these paths and careers can go. I wonder sometimes, where do they end up, right? It is so great to see unique ideas in fighting games, right? This was from 2005, I believe? Right, but like 2005 was kind of the golden era of like Japanese doujin fighting games. You had the Melty Bloods, and very soon after Vanguard Princess. You had the folks behind Burning Angels and Magellowick and games like that. Akatsuki was around, right? So like it was kind of, Big Bang Beat, you're absolutely right. There you go. It was kind of like the explosion of that style of game. And I think that style of game has permeated very heavily into like modern fighting game design, where when you look at the influence that Guilty Gear had on that scene, and that scene then had on Guilty Gear, and then later down the line BlazBlue, and eventually down to Dragon Ball FighterZ and those kinds of things. So there's been this like progression. Seeing some of these experiments, like the ones that IGS have done, and how that compares to some of the doujin scene and what was going on there, it's really interesting. Like, you think that stuff like The Last Blade didn't really carry on into modern fighting game design in too many ways. Of course, you can find examples. Heatwave is an excellent example of that. You do see a lot of the experiments being done in fighting games harkening back to things that, French Bread did, to things that some of the SNK games ended up doing, which did not get the same kind of attention and capture the same kind of mind share as many other fighting games, right? But you can see these influences in things like modern day Guilty Gear, and then the slew of modern day indie games that are coming out. It's remarkable. We need to do some more deep dives into these kinds of developers and try to like cross-reference how they intersect with the other games that we traditionally think about when we think fighting games. All started with the Asuka 120. That's right. It is really actually interesting to think of how much of the the Eroge scene has had to do with some of these fighting games coming about, right? And it's something that I think we don't like thinking about too much in the fighting game community when we think about these things analytically, but we can't forget it, right? And we do talk about it when things like Koihime Enbu come up in conversation, even Vanguard Princess, the very fan servicey stuff. Part of the reason that exists is because of the lineage of Eroge and H games in the doujin scene, and how they were experimenting with a lot of interesting fighting game mechanics because they were experimenting with everything. You got RPGs, you have dating sims, you have fighting games and beat 'em ups and puzzle games, all using these characters and these IPs that are originally, H series or H IPs and Eroge, and then turning them into these other things, and some of that being toned down, but like that is a very clear connection to some of those things, which I think why when you look at Million Arthur or Koihime Enbu or Vanguard Princess and say, I don't know, it's not just that this appeared out of nowhere, right? There is precedent to why some of these design conventions exist in fighting games. Yes, that burp. I was gonna say Valkyrie PC 9808. There's a lot of the PC 9800 stuff is very, like, it has a lot of the H games, the Eroge. So that is a place where this kind of design started bubbling up, and then a lot of the doujin, like you said, it has a huge influence on the doujin scene, and then seeing how that interacted with the rest of the developers who were doing things just adjacent to them, right? Like those things rub off over the course of a decade, right? And it's easy for us as Westerners to forget that, hey, this stuff was bubbling and developing for a decade plus in the Japanese doujin scenes, which we really didn't have access to, right? Not in the ways that we have access to those scenes these days. We're talking the history and lineage of fighting games. And yeah, I genuinely think trying to do kind of like a genealogical study of some of these games and where did these design conventions come from and who was ultimately responsible for them, and then how do modern day devs, because I think if you look at stuff like Street Fighter 6, you're going to start seeing some things that were like, oh, this was an idea that was explored in that doujin fighting game, right? It's with a lot of the indie games, you see it where people are exploring very specific ideas in a broad kind of fashion. So you have people who say, what if no jumping and no crouching? What does that mean? Well, it means Arcus Chroma. Where does Arcus Chroma pull their inspiration from? A lot of these 4-button chain fighters, which have great lineage in doujin fighting games. So you have to start looking at the various doujin fighters and how they implemented their systems, their teleport systems, their side swap systems. And you can start making these connections. And yeah, I think some of the more complex Capcom games that brought in some of the Alpha series, bringing in Groove, I think was a direct response to SNK and the more complex games that or the more complex and more numerous systems that they were incorporating into their games compared to traditional Street Fighter. And so Alpha was a move to that, where what if we have, different isms and different modes to play the game and different ways to interact with these mechanics and these systems like meter or whatever the case may be, and then mixing them together. And yeah, doing the various custom combo stuff, I think, really did feed off of each other as well. I think there's a lot of interesting points of comparison to explore there. But there are so many. Even just tracking down the timeline of these things can be difficult sometimes. That, though, I think will be a project for another day.